How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but do you, just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Bret, let's just get to the point, okay? The point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have an
rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office,
the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
And it was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the... Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish,
You
please.
have the White House and the House and the Senate, and they didn't bring up that bill.
Responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
Kamala Harris did an interview with Fox News, Bret Baier, the very impartial guy. And we're going to get into this interview. We're going to get into the part about border security. Without further ado, let's get into it. This interview is a doozy.
Voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but just a number. Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Bret, let's just get to the point, okay? The point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have a...
No, you are finished because you're not answering anything. You want to go on a spill right now, and Bret's not letting you.
But we have
a rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So, looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
At the beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021. And it was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the... Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish,
You
please.
have the White House and the House and the Senate,
and
they didn't bring up that bill.
Responding to the point you're raising, and I'd like to finish.
Yes, ma'am.
But you're not responding. But let's just hear what she's got to say. You're not responding at all. We know what you passed because Biden spoke about what you passed, but let's just hear what she has to say. And then I'm going to break this down because we already know the direction that she's going. She's getting ready to go on a spill.
We recognized from day one that, to the point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people. And our focus has been on fixing a problem. And from day one, then, we have done a number of things, including to address our asylum system and put more resources, getting more judges, what we needed to do to tighten up penalties and increase penalties for illegal crossings, what we needed to do to deal with points of entry between border entry points. That's the work we did, and we worked on supporting what was a bipartisan effort, including some of the most conservative members of the United States Congress, to actually strengthen the border. That border bill would have put 1,500 more border agents at the border, which is why I believe the Border Patrol agents supported the bill. It would have allowed us to stem the flow of fentanyl coming into the United States, which is a scourge affecting people of every background, every geographic location in our country, killing people. It would have allowed us to put more resources into prosecuting transnational criminal organizations, which I have done as the Attorney General, former Attorney General of a border state.
Madam Vice President, a couple of things.
Prosecuted trafficking of drugs, guns, and human beings. And Donald Trump, but let me just finish.
Six
and
Democrats
Donald
voted
Trump
against that bill.
learned about that bill and told them to kill it because he preferred to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And in this election, this is rightly a discussion that the American people want to have. And what they want are solutions, and they want a president of the United States who's not playing political games with the issue,
I hear you.
but actually is focused on fixing
Six
it.
Democrats voted against.
Okay, so let's just get into this. What Kamala Harris and Joe Biden signed at the beginning of the year, their bill that they were talking about in 2001, was not a bill that had any sorts of resources to help add on to taking care of the issue at the border at all. Don't take my word for it. Let's get into this clip where Biden will explain what this border bill is about.
Today I'm going to sign a few executive orders to strengthen the immigration system, building on the executive actions I took on day one to protect dreamers and the Muslim ban and to better manage our border. And that's what these three different executive orders are about. We want to make it clear, there's a lot of talk with good reason about the number of executive orders that I've signed. I'm not making new law. I'm eliminating bad policy. What I'm doing is taking on the issues that 99% of them that the last president of the United States, issued executive orders I thought were very counterproductive to our security, counterproductive to who we are as a country.
I'm not making any new law at all. I'm passing a border bill that's just taking away the provisions that were put in play by the previous president, Donald Trump. I'm not putting in any new laws or bills. So the spill that Kamala's given on what she did when they passed the border bill is a complete lie. Then she goes on to talk about this border bill that they tried to pass recently, quickly, in order to benefit the Joe Biden-Kamala Harris campaign, and it backfired. Why did it backfire? They tried to pass a $120 billion, border bill to quote-unquote help the border. And yes, it was shot down by Republicans. Why? Because this bill was packed in with more plans and more different things that had nothing to do with any type of border bill at all, in which half of it was aid essentially going over to Ukraine. So $60 billion out of the approximately $120 billion was military aid for Ukraine specifically. Okay, $14 billion was aid for Israel. Okay, approximately $5 billion was aid for the Indo-Pacific region. $10 billion humanitarian assistance for Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, amongst other things. Also $2 billion for refugee assistance inside the United States, and $20 billion for improvements for the U.S. border security. $20 billion. That's it. Out of $120 billion, $20 billion went to the border. And then you had approximately $3 billion that went to uranium enrichments, which is nevertheless not important. $20 billion out of $120 billion. And you call this a border bill? No, this was a scheme to go ahead and send more money to Ukraine. That's what that was. Listen, I've thrown the data up there. I've thrown the numbers up there. Don't take my word for it. Let's hear it from these guys.
obviously a pretty big consequential moment in the sense of, as we were talking about momentarily, this is $100 billion pitch, right? 60 billion or so for Ukraine, 14 billion for Israel, 14 billion for the southern border. And what you just heard, and let's start with Ford and May, was President Biden make the case that Republicans, some of them, are holding hostage aid, and he called it an extreme Republican border agenda. And one of the questions is, how do you get Ukraine aid with a border aid at this point in time in Washington? It's not looking good.
But Biden's delusional because he's not serious about the border. Border security is national security.
They are not serious about the border. This is nothing more than a scheme to try to get votes back, knowing that they messed up, effed up, and trying to do a last-minute Hail Mary by getting in votes. And the whole swap thing was also a last-minute Hail Mary to get Biden to bow out, to put Kamala in, just so they, as they can say, as Quentin Tarantino famously said, yeah, this, that, and the third, but we just want to what?
I think there's just all about winning the fucking election, all right? And then the easiest path to winning the election, look, you can talk about maybe she should have had more guts about this or that and the other, but we're the fucking president.
Right.
And Trump's not the president, and we're the fucking president, and now it's going to be about this. But this is about fucking winning. What most people don't give the Democrats enough credit for, all right, but we give the Republicans credit for. It's like, no, sometimes it's just about fucking winning. And it doesn't matter how we look at this moment. It's about fucking winning.
Right.
This is about fucking winning.
Yep. No, it is.
Jesus. Listen, the guy makes pretty good movies, but I didn't know he was a lunatic. Listen, I have a video where I break that scene down in the description. You can watch that there. But listen, let's get back to this last portion. Let's watch this last part of Bret Baier ripping Kamala, and then I'm going to get into the last ending breakdown of this.
No pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear, I think we all are, that it needs to be fixed. We need more. I was just down at the border talking with border agents, and they will tell you, and I'm sure you probably, I know you investigate and you are a serious journalist. They will tell you, we need more judges. We need to process those cases faster. We need the support for those cases that should be prosecuted. They need more resources, and Congress ultimately is the only place that's going to get fixed, Bret.
Well,
that's how this system works.
That's the premise of this question. There were 90-plus executive orders that were rescinded in the first days. Many of those were Trump border policies. I'm not going to stay here because there's other things to talk about, but you frequently talk to the Border Patrol Union for support of that bipartisan bill, and they did. They supported it. But they also just endorsed Donald Trump and said, you've been, quote, a failure with border security. Why do you think they said that?
I think they're frustrated, and I get it. They want support. They want support, and that's what that border security bill would have done. These guys...
No, they're not frustrated because they want support. And your scheme border bill would have did nothing, again, because it was only 20% was going to the border, 80% was going everywhere else. This is why they're frustrated. They're not frustrated. They're angry at you and Biden's policy, which was a policy to change nothing, but to take away Trump's policies that were keeping the border safe. This is why they're upset. During Trump's administration, as we can see, which was from 2016 to 2020, approximately, we can see that the numbers here are preeminent. We can see that it had remained pretty steady over the course of 2016 and 2020, which was pretty low. Throughout the Trump administration, we can see the numbers. Let's bring up another chart that Trump famously loves because it's the chart that saved his life, to get more transparency on this. And as we can see here, when it comes to the illegal immigration into the United States, we can see from 2016 to 2020, we had a lot of lows, and Trump was about steady, according to this chart, about 30K approximately. There was a peak that happened with the tariff threat in Mexico, And once he got that to go through, it went back down to his very low average. Okay? Once Trump left office, which the arrow is here, this shot up drastically to the point where the average amount of crossings went up to approximately 200K. 200K on average when it comes to the Biden, Kamala, Harris administration. So here's the summary. Kamala Harris had some great difficulties with these interviews, and she was very uncomfortable, which caused her to have some irrational and give some angry answers. But nevertheless, whether she was uncomfortable or not, or angry or not, she has irrational answers all the time anyways. But next, she lied about the impact that the 2021 border bill that Joe Biden and her as vice president that signed into the administration when they first got in. Biden later explains, as you saw in this video, that basically that bill changed nothing. It changed nothing. All it did was move restrictions from Trump's administration, which had no benefit on the society or economy in a positive way. Also, she lied about the border bill that they tried to pass 9 to 10 months ago, which was supposed to be something to help the border, but in actuality, it was a scheme to send money overseas. Half of the money was to Ukraine specifically, and 80% of the money was going nowhere near the border. And last but not least, this is why the Kamala administration and her team did not want to do an interview, because she knew that they knew that she could not handle these types of questions, these types of interview style on a moderate or right-leaning network, because she has no logical answers and she gets gaffed up a lot when trying to answer questions. She has no defense for why her administration did so terrible, and it's obvious. So I hope you like this video. I'm Mr. Rembrandt. Make sure you like and subscribe. A lot of you are not subscribed. 90% of you who watch my videos are not subscribed. Make sure you like and subscribe, and I will see you on the next video.